you've been feeling the call to write a book, it is no accident. Your book is needed in the world, so let's make it happen. I'm Nicola, and this is the Unbound Writers Club. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Unbound Writers Club. Today I have something a little bit different for you. We are used to having conversations with authors as their books are making their way into the world. But today I'm in conversation with Lucy Lowes Paget, who recently signed a publishing deal with us at the Unbound Press to publish her forthcoming book, The Home Tray. And I'm excited to talk to her when that book does make its way into the world. But before that, Lucy actually was originally from the UK, has lived in Canada. Now she's based in Nicaragua. And from our first connection on Zoom, like seeing the jungle around her, I was like, oh my goodness, that place looks amazing. And then I found out that Lucy actually runs writers' residencies from her space in Nicaragua, this incredible place that she has created for artists of all kind to come and have space and have time with whatever project that they are working on. And I personally felt very, very drawn to head out there and have some time. I know it's something I will do at some point. And I felt like there would certainly be people in the Unbound writing community who would also enjoy that, would benefit from it. So we decided to have a conversation so you can find out more about Lucy, about this incredible place where she is, and the idea of taking some time for you and your book in the space that she's created. The idea of a writer's residency, which is quite different from a retreat, actually. So I think you're going to enjoy this conversation, discovering more about the impact that the land has had on Lucy's writing, like the journey that's brought her to this very particular place, and why you might want to go and spend some time there. So without further ado, let's dive in and I'll introduce you to Lucy. So, Lucy, welcome to the Unbound Writers Club.
Thank you, Nicola. It's really lovely to be here.
It's great to have you here and to be having this conversation. And I always begin them with the same question, which is what makes you, in particular, an unbound writer? Is there anything that you found you've had to unbind from, any old stories, expectations, beliefs, or is anything that's different about the way you're birthing your book?
I think I've unbound myself from so much of right from early years, the schooling and expectations that were placed upon me. I started life in England and was sent to a boarding school, and it was kind of that English boarding school life that was then replaced when I was 13 by moving to Canada into a whole different world, which was such a shock and so hard, and also such an eye-opening experience to discover what it's like to suddenly be in a very different culture when you're still a child and you're, taught to believe British history is the one and only history, and then you go to another country where you're then taught to believe that that is the only history that they tell, which of course is just the version of a story that somebody wants you to learn about place and geography. And then as I grew older, I didn't fully listen, or didn't trust to listen to what I really wanted to do and be, which has always been to be a writer. I've had stories coming out of me since I was a little girl that I would write, and then I would get really overwhelmed because I didn't know how to get through the middle to the end of the stories. I didn't have the skills to do that, but I would write, and then I would have another story and another story. And I wanted to go to art school and do fine art. And my mother said to me, no, artists don't make money. No. And even though our shelves were lined with Booker Prize winners and fabulous authors, it wasn't, I didn't feel that could be possible for me. I wasn't led to believe that was a possibility for me. and I have yet to win a prize for my writing. So maybe we'll have to see how life evolves. But so not believing that was possible, I became a yoga teacher. That was breaking. That was unbinding from, that was a little bit like, what? You're a yoga teacher? And that was, 20-ish years ago. And then I realized I didn't want to teach people to touch their toes my whole life long and to breathe in and breathe out. And so I studied osteopathy, and I became an osteopath and learned how to fix people. And then within that was this interesting opening where I discovered some forms of healing that are kind of quite energetic and subtle, and the kind of stuff that's a little bit magical. Like, oh, the stories of, let's call it miraculous healing. The stories are real. Oh. And so then I started to navigate this pathway, which I'd already begun with yoga and the introduction to different ideas. And so within the convention of, like, now I had a good, respectable training as an osteopath, very respectable, I felt, was approved by my family. And I had an osteopathic clinic, and I studied in England. So I went back through my 20s to England to know England as an adult. And then I moved back again to Canada in my 30s. And it was a time of setting up foundations, of having children, making a business, and becoming kind of a woman with my feet on the ground, and financial stability, and 2 beautiful children and a yellow Labrador and some bees on my back patio, and a community garden, and like lovely kind of rambling country stuff with respectable job stuff. And I did this, and it was an amazing decade of learning, and also an amazing decade of much pain, where my body started to hurt with autoimmune stuff. And I started to feel myself shrinking within the life that I was creating, because I was walking a path that was beautiful, but parallel to the one that was truly mine. It was almost right, but it wasn't. And this, I couldn't keep walking that path. And my body was very clearly telling me that I couldn't. And so the unbinding really, really began in my 30s, where I started to see that I needed to change and break and remake and re-choose. And that eventually led to, with some difficult and strong life endings. My mom died very suddenly, and there was this time after she died where my ex-husband and I were ready to sell our osteopathic clinic. He also had decided that it wasn't right for him. And I also knew around this time that my marriage it was a really good marriage. I have a kind, good ex-husband, but it wasn't in the fullness of love and connection what I wanted anymore. Anyhow, I had this experience where I was just walking outside on a chilly November day to my car. I opened the car door. All of a sudden, a voice said in my head, but it really didn't sound like my own internal dialogue, "You're done." And I was like, "What? Excuse me? What? Excuse me?" And I wanted to put my hand up. Like, can you continue? Like, what am I done with? Okay, I'd like to know more information. And there was no more. But the clarity of those words spoken, "You're done," with such firmness, and no more than that. But of course I knew I was done. I knew I had been done. And so then, like, the business was sold, and my ex-husband and I moved to Nicaragua, where I am now, and we'll have a discussion about this place that I have created, which is wild peace and sanctuary, where I make my art and I do my writing and I live my life in a very different way, just trying to deepen into what is true and what is fulfilling, which is a challenge that comes like waves, some big of them crashing, some gentle and soothing. So
yeah. Well, I want to know, like you mentioned that you and your ex-husband moved to Nicaragua, and it's like, how, why, like what called you to this place where you are now?
difference. I needed warmth on my skin. And this is something that I've written about a lot, because the calling what is the calling? What is our, how do we know calling? How do we know calling? And I think it comes from longing, from deep longing, not wanting, but like, what are the deep longings? And the deep longings that I've had have been the same longings since I was a child. And they come in things that are only hints, but true enough to follow. So warm air on my skin, blue sky more than gray sky, color all year round, like a kind of a vibrancy that I hadn't experienced, and very, without much choosing, Nicaragua was chosen because a few people mentioned it and spoke of it. And I thought, okay, it's different. And I know it's tropical there. And I know it's a Spanish speaking country. And I want for my children as well to learn a different language. And I knew that there were monkeys here. And monkeys at that time felt different enough from my known world that I was like, if there are monkeys, I'm going to a place that is different enough that that is where I will start.
I love that. It's like, okay, that's the line. Those monkeys there, I'm going.
And they wake me up. They wake me up every day. They're howler monkeys, and of the various different monkey species, there's 3 monkey species here, and they are so noisy and they sound like a Jurassic dinosaur. For those who, some people know will know howler monkeys and know very well, and others come here, and others who may be listening to this will be like, oh, I don't know what a howler monkey is, but think of what you would imagine to be a dinosaur roaring, and that's, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So when you landed there in this new environment that you've been called to, and I love like the simplicity of how you describe it. It's like, I want to feel the warmth of the sun on my skin, blue sky more than grey sky. Like, I love that. Was it pretty soon after that that you kind of returned to your writing and felt the call to write a book, or like how did that play out?
Writing for me has been the most beautiful bridge that has enabled me to take change. It's
Mm.
been the thing that I have the stability in writing, in making stories, that allows me then to do the next thing in my life. So writing preceded the move to Nicaragua.
Mm.
I had already stopped working full time as an osteopath in order to write.
Oh,
But
wonderful.
what I discovered as I made that change was that the writing that I thought would come so easily did not come easily, because it required rehab of my spirit and learning of writing skills that, although I had always written, I didn't really devote time to it. And like any craft, it takes time to develop, to discover like how to write with my own voice. And so the writing had begun, but it was early days in the really fullness of choosing to write. But it was something that I had as this stable thing that I had, and it gave me this sense of purpose. So as we uprooted ourselves and moved to Nicaragua, where many people I've seen will come here and feel very disoriented, because when you make a huge change and move to a different place, it's like you have to reground, you have to resettle, you have to discover. And that, if you don't have a sense of what your purpose is quite overwhelming. And I would say, of the people that I see in 8 years that I've been here in Nicaragua, about half the people leave because it's a really hard thing to navigate change. And it can be good, and it can be a rediscovery of the place you were before, to come away from it and then go back, and like you've learned some things and then you go back, or you learn new things and then there's new purpose and structure and routing created. But the writing really has developed over the time I've been here, and it's developed through one book series of fiction, which still sits in Scrivener files on my computer, waiting to be completed, and shifted then into my life story, which is what I'm writing now, is a story that I'm working with Unbound to publish, is The Home Tree, which is, it is a memoir, it is nature stories, and it is like myth and magic.
Yeah, yeah, love it, love it. And totally get that piece around that when you move to a different place, a different country, a different environment, like as you have done, that it can feel, will feel kind of unsettling for a time. And just getting that sense of like putting your roots down and writing supporting you with that. And I know from our first conversation, like I knew where you were, but actually from that conversation and also you being on some of the writing sessions in the Unbound Writers Collective, and it is just always, I don't know, you just bring such it just feels like a really unbound energy, like from like the space where you are. I always love it when you're on one of the calls. So when you said like you got in touch and you mentioned about these writers, like creative residencies that you're offering, I was like, oh my goddess, this just sounds amazing. Like for me personally, but I know there are people in the Unbound community who would really appreciate this kind of space. I mean, how did you feel? I'm going to use the word calling again, like that calling to start offering these residencies.
Oh, it rises up from the land first. And that is the piece that I know that this for me is a creative space, and for others who come, it is a place for artists. It
Mm,
is a place for writers. It is a place to be inspired and recolored in, and to have a safe but like vibrant container to do deep, good, creative work. So the call is, or the yeah, there is like, it's like the land speaks, and I live out in the countryside. I'm surrounded by reserve land around my property, and I live about 20 minutes from a really fun, hustling, bustling port town, harbor town called San Juan del Sur in southern Nicaragua. And it's a safe place. Nicaragua has interesting international press around it because the government is quite an oppressive government. Like, you have one choice of who's the government anyhow. So there is that. But as a foreigner here, it is safe and beautiful, which is why I have stayed here and why I have, chosen for my children to be at a really lovely school here, and why I then bought land. And so I have 5 acres. And on my 5 acres, just there is a huge veggie garden I created, a big round medicinal herb garden, and paths that I've made in the shape of hearts. Like the concrete was poured in the shape of hearts, so that there's this ambling through the land, which is part of the experience of being here, along the heart paths, through the gardens, to places under big guanacaste trees where there are swings hanging that can be reflection places, to this little cabin that I'm in right now, which I call the Poetry Hut, and big art studio space on the top floor, the third floor of my home, which is what is the co-creative writing space when it feels like right timing for doing that kind of work, where you can sit in quiet company and that beautiful like connection, which feels sacred when you have that quiet connection where people are just doing their work, but you
mm,
have nearby who are just providing the company. And then of course the importance of as well being able to retreat to secluded spots to work. So I built this home from the call of my being and from the call of the land, because when I first walked on this beautiful land, it had echoes of my grandparents' home in Sussex that I had loved as a child. I felt like my grandmother and my grandfather were speaking to me through the years, through the earth, of like, you can be at home here, you can
mm,
be at home here. And so I started to create and make a place that is right for me as an artist who wants to be in wild peace and in deep connection with the land. And it's something I think about a lot. I am not of this place, but I am the land. I can feel the connection to the land that makes it right place. And everybody feels it who comes. It is not just me, it is the feeling of ancient tribes coming onto this whole area of land, the village that I'm in. People arrive like, oh, this is special here. This is sacred. And within what I've created, the place that I've created is just so delightful that I know from the core of my being and from the soil and the trees and the air around me that this is the place for artists. This is where we must gather. This is where we must come, and we must do the work that our heart is longing for us to express. And the place that, when I say that wild peace is such an interesting thing, because there's a quiet and peacefulness that we assume, but wild paired with peace, it's like a beautiful wine and cheese pairing of like the flavor of wild and the flavor of peace combined. And it's very, it is like there's something deep and rich.
I feel
And
it. I can feel it. Yeah. Yeah. Was it always part of the vision then when you moved to this place to invite others to come and create? Or was that something that came later through your connection with the land?
I think it, yes and no. What I had thought was that I wanted people to come on retreat here for a week, a couple of weeks. And then as time unfolded and I had experiences of people coming and going, it always has felt too brief, like coming and going, coming and going. And it also then, when people are coming and going, I stop my creative work to like, oh, well, let me show you this, like, and give you like a quick snapshot. And so what I have learned is that what I want to surround myself in, which supports me more, and I think is more supportive of people visiting, is come and stay. Come and stay for a while and do your work. Let's be here together. And so the month-long residencies is created out of that, knowing that what I want to foster, what I want to surround myself with is like, okay, come and stay. And it's like a retreat in that I always make sure that people are well taken care of and tended, but without the intense structure of like, okay, at 8 we're doing this and at 10 we're doing this. No, it's like, okay, there's some food for you to make breakfast. We'll gather at lunch and lunch will be made for us. In between, like, you can come and choose, we're doing some work here, or you just do your work. And then within that time for some exploration and some holidaying as well, because people who come mostly, not always, but mostly are from other places, but much more grounding than just coming and being away. And even though it's fun, it's fun to have a holiday where you go somewhere and do this big thing, and then you go home and you have the joy of like, oh, I just did something so different, and you've got a postcard. It's more like, instead of a postcard, let's make it a beautiful letter to the soul that like is remembered and is an experience that is enriching and also furthers then, and provides the sustenance to go home and continue working, or to have completed something, depending on what the desire is.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Because there's always that transition time, isn't it? If you go away, like on a retreat, or, you're traveling somewhere and spending some time, like you need to land in that place. And sometimes we can just be landing and then we're like, oh, okay, I'm off home again. Whereas like the sense I get from what you're talking about there is like you really get to settle in and land in the space. And like I've got this sense of your book, or whatever the creative project is that you take there, just really being able to land with you and enjoy that sense of space.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the first part of landing, well, it is the first part of landing is orientation. Okay, where are you on the map of your own journey, as well as on the map of this different place? And the nervous system is naturally like suddenly having to adjust to different sounds, different experience. And our nervous systems need a bit of time to then calibrate differently to different places. And so there's always that, like, okay, recalibrate. Let's do that first. And maybe it takes 2 days. Maybe for some people it takes 5 days. It takes a moment, and it takes enough of a moment that it's a beautiful thing, when there's also then enough time afterwards to then go into the next phase, which is like, okay, I'm in resonance now with place, and I've rested, and now there is more creative flow. So I know from my own experience, as well as with others, that resting is such a vital part of recalibration, and then finding creativity once our buckets are full of health and energy once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned the word resonance there, and I'm feeling into like your resonance with the land and the resonance that, you know, whoever comes to visit and spend time there gets to experience. And I'm curious as to like the impact that the land, the space where you are, has had on your own writing, your own expression, and what you've noticed about others who've come
Mm.
to spend time there.
So I really want to tell you about the home tree and
Mm.
La Triquiñuela, and characters who they're imaginary characters who feel mythical to me, and they are from the land, and they are from the stories of this place, which are the stories of like culture and tradition, of the kind of mythology and folklore. But I have changed these characters to fit with kind of modern transcultural shifting, because this multicultural world, I think there needs to be a kindness in how we come to different places and integrate ourselves. There needs to be more bridging. There is a delicacy of cultural impact. There's so many pieces around that I'm just really mindful of, but without going deep into that, which is such an interesting area, the place and the joy and the simplicity of the land. Thank goodness for the simplicity of land. You know, when you just connect with land, everything's simpler. And when I moved into my house, so I built my home. I built the guest house that's on the land. And I moved in, and one day I was lying down doing a meditation, and I was really exhausted. The building was very intense in lots of bad ways. Like just ridiculous building stuff. Anyhow, I lay down, and quite suddenly it came to my awareness that the big guanacaste, they're just such big trees right beside my house, that it was there, like it was talking to me and expressing that it was part of my home, that this tree or I was part of its home now.
Mm.
And the tree has these great branches that extend out in its canopy towards my home, and then of course the roots underneath. And so I had this feeling of being held by the home tree. And so I started to pay more attention, more and more and more attention, particularly to the home tree, who just feels like an ally in my writing. And then I remember on days where life brings its typical patterns of busyness or stress, to pause and in writing about nature and writing about the chickens and the roosters and the turkeys and the parrots and the monkeys and the lizards and the spiders and the scorpions and the good things, and then the other bits and pieces that of tropical place. It grounds me. And I can go and I can sit under the home tree and write or sketch or journal. There's also wood that's I have so many trees. There's a lot of forest around me, and some of the trees on my property are beautiful hardwood trees that I can thin them out and use them, some of them for wood, for building, but also for making art. And so there's like the connection to pieces like wood in painting that I have done quite a lot of, that I never used to do, for making signs for the garden, making beautiful pieces of art. But I also want to tell you about La Triquiñuela. So now you know about the home tree. La Triquiñuela is a character who I created for the book, The Home Tree, who she is a trickster. And La Triqui is obviously like, we can make an easy translation of that to English, like to trickster. And she's just this imaginary witchy character that I have created, who is helpful for me to illustrate the ways in which we get caught up on our own, like illusory thinking, our own kind of wanting thinking and hoping or pushing for something to happen when it's not quite right timing. And anyhow, so she's like a Latina trickster, and I kind of imagine her and place her sometimes in my writing up in the home tree, waving her long stripy stockinged legs and knitting with cobwebs up in the tree, sharing her rather kind of trickstery, witty, brilliant minded advice, and chatting in the stories about the duendes or the chaneque, which is the Spanish word for fairies. but they're imagined differently here. They're bigger. And so, imagining the duendes, the fairies in the garden who might be like helping her to cut some herbs so that she can make her potions. It just makes them, that kind of magical thinking delights me and wonders me. It's so fun and is of this place that I look forward to hearing what other people will come and create. And it's been fun working with that already with the people who've been here and seeing what's been created.
Oh yeah, really, really feeling it. So if someone's listening and they're like, I want some of this, I need to find out more, and they're interested in coming and spending time with you on the land for their own writers, creative residency, like what would you like to say to them, actually? What invitation would you extend to them?
I'd like to say that the first thing is like that people are welcome to just ask questions. Because when we don't know a place, our hopes for going away, especially on like a bigger, longer trip, is that it's really something that meets deep needs. Deep needs must be met. And so that's the kind of reassurance that I first want to create in people, that yes, I am here to support you to have your deep needs met. And so the first thing is, it's like, let's have a conversation. And I answer messages directly. I don't have an admin person filtering comments or questions on social media or my emails. And so it just is like, okay, let's have a chat. Like, this is really simple. I have like space for 2 people to come at a time. This is not a big operation with hundreds of people. Nobody gets lost. And so the invitation is like, let's have a conversation, and just reaching out to me directly through email. Taking a look on social media is a really easy way to get like lots of visual sense of things, which my place is called ApotheFinca, which translates as apothecary farm. So apothe, like apotheke or apothecary, it's ApotheFinca. And that on Instagram is a lovely thing to look up, to check things out. And then just directly sending me a message through that or through my email, which I'm sure you're going to be posting along with this. Yeah,
we will, and the links to your Instagram as well, so that they can find out more and connect with you that way. I just want to say, I always love like your Instagram and like seeing clips of you as well, like singing on the beach, which I saw, I think, over the weekend. It's like,
there's another unbinding. It's like, I didn't know that I was a singer until I was 40, but like, oh, I can sing, and it's really fun. And it's actually, it's not about being a good singer. It's like, it's using my voice, and it's stepping into courage that it's just more unbinding. So fun.
Yeah. I love it. It always brings me so much joy seeing you sing, which I didn't know about you when we first kind of connected. So it's like, oh, and discovered much more about you through this conversation. And I'm really looking forward also to when we have the conversation when your book comes out, The Home Tree.
Yes.
Very excited.
Yes. Yeah.
It's happening. It's happening. Yes. It's in process. So yeah, you've kind of shared the best ways for people to connect with you. Anything else you wanna share before we close, Lucy?
I am, as I just sit here with you, sending you in England love from this land here far away, and the feeling of connectedness of place, that even though we're far away geographically, to you and to the people listening, this like beautiful worldly connection that we can have far away, from the echoes of Sussex that I had to this place, and right back to your place. And I think that's just what I want to finish up with, because connection to land and making art from the land is like, there we go. Now we're connected to voice, energy, health. And that's what it's about coming here. Yeah.
Beautiful. What a gorgeous way to finish. Thank you so much, Lucy, for bringing some of this magic into the Unbound Writers Club today. As I said, I always love it when we're connecting and I just get to see glimpses, and really hoping I get to come out and experience it in this long stretch with you at some point.
Yes. Thank you for enabling me to share. from my little corner.
So welcome. Yeah. Thank you.